No. Hello, all. Welcome to the Fantasy and Sci-Fi Fanatics podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Coolbaugh, and today I have with me a very special guest, Scott Oden. Scott, how are you today?
I'm good. Nice to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. I was really excited after I found your book, after I had seen you on Twitter, actually, and talked to you a couple of times, and I had actually seen it at Barnes and Noble. So I literally went over and snatched it up right away, and I was on my way to the register, and then I was looking at the back, and I was like, yeah, this is definitely the book for me. So I'm really anxious to pick your brain today. It definitely seems like I almost feel like a Gathering Ravens could almost be like its own subgenre of fantasy. So I had quite a few questions to ask you in particular. So when you said yes, I was just like, all right, let's do this thing.
Speaking of the, just in case, that's Gathering of Ravens. There we go. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that cover. And if you
Oh,
guys,
it's awesome.
I'll put the blurb too, or any other things that, links or anything like that, that you want people to see. I love your website, by the way. I was checking it out. I love seeing other people's and trying to figure out, exactly more of a fantasy feel. And I really liked yours. So we'll
That
definitely
was
put that in the links.
my minimal ability with WordPress.
Oh man, you should see mine. Your minimum ability is better than mine. So it definitely
Hey,
had the feel. So
if I can clip it and drop it in, I'm good.
it was good. I really liked it.
Well, thank you.
And so, like I said, that was one of the first ones, the titles that I had seen. I had seen it around a couple times, and then once I, started interacting with you on Twitter, I was really excited to pick that one up. And like I was saying before this, and I've told people as well through other episodes what my current reading order is. So, like I said, yeah, you're my third up here. So, any listeners, if you're interested in Scott's A Gathering of Ravens, I will be getting to that as soon as my schedule calms down and I can finish my other two. And we'll be putting those reviews up on the podcast actually and on YouTube. So be looking for those probably here in about the next month or so. A little slam because school just started, but we will be getting those to you as soon as possible. And like I said, I will be putting that book and Scott's other book links in the YouTube description as well, and in the description on Spotify. Scott, I'm really curious to see what just looking at your website. I was really interested to ask you this question in particular. So, what has your writing journey been like, and what genre did you start writing first?
It's been a long journey. First started writing fantasy in 1981,
Oh, wow.
and I found out I couldn't actually write fantasy very well. So, so time went on. I switched over I wanted to write a Conan novel.
Oh,
In
I don't blame you.
the late 1980s, I was like, I'm going to write a Conan novel, it'll be the greatest Conan novel ever. Yeah, no, they stopped publishing those.
Hmm.
So I have this, 3 chapters of a novel I can't use. A friend of mine told me, well, why don't you make your own character? And I was like, that's my problem. I can't do it. So I ended up I was at home one night, I was watching TV. The Egyptian came on with
Oh, cool.
Victor Mature. And I was like, what if I just, instead of being in the Hyborian Age, what if it's in ancient Egypt? And everything just fell into place.
Oh, cool.
It was the first long form book that I had ever written. It took me 2 years, and then it was published in 2005. It's called Men of Bronze, and it's a straight historical fiction. It's about the fall of Egypt in 525
Oh,
BC
cool.
to the Persians. But you can still see flashes of Conan because he was the main character. I just changed his name.
Oh, that's cool.
And then the second book was also just straight historical fiction. And now I said, screw it, I'm going to try to write fantasy. And I'd met an editor at Thomas Dunn Books at the time.
Okay.
And he was like, well, what if you write what if Robert E. Howard had written about the assassins?
Mm.
And I'm like, oh my God. So I run off, I write a little bitty synopsis. The standard for at the time was 12 pages. So I write this little 12-page synopsis. He's like, it needs more detail. I'm like, okay. So I go back. I come back with a 50-something page something like 40,000 word synopsis.
Oh
It
wow.
has action, dialogue, the whole 9 yards. He's like, yeah, we'll buy this one
Oh,
and three more.
wow.
And that's how it started. I had to take probably about almost a 10-year break in the middle to take care of my parents.
Oh, okay.
So that's why there's a 7-year gap between the Lion of Cairo and Gathering of Ravens. So, and that's where I'm at now. I do mainly historical fantasy, and I might go back to historical fiction for a while.
Oh, cool. Okay.
I do love just straight historical fiction. So.
Yeah, I love me some Bernard Cornwell.
Oh yeah, him, Stephen Pressfield.
Yeah, yep. Got Miles
Fun.
Cameron coming on here
Yeah.
later next month. I really
See,
anxious.
I like his brother Christian better.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
They're actually twins. They just don't want anybody to know.
Oh, see, I didn't know that. I did not know
I'm lying. I am so lying to you.
because that's not what he's touting. He said the other day about being brothers. So that was the ongoing thread that we were discussing back and forth. And somebody had, I don't know if it was him or who had photoshopped 2 pictures of himself right there. So I didn't know that he was now trying to say twins. So that's actually good to know. Somebody the other day, there was that one, and then the ongoing, obviously, like with the Wizards, Warriors, and Words crew, with writing all the books, and they were saying that now they claimed a different author as well. So I had a lot of fun on the threads last week instead of getting work done and stuff, but it was really funny to see.
Just keep in mind, though.
Back and forth.
Just keep in mind, I wrote all of Dirk Ashton's books.
Yeah. I definitely will inform that of Mike, and they're gonna have to start talking about that on the show for sure.
Yeah.
Maybe that could be like a future podcast.
Michael Fletcher's just an actor hired to play somebody named Michael Fletcher.
Yeah. And that's what it was so funny that you say it, because the last episode, they were discussing how Jed created this app with random characterizations, and Dirk says, "Well, that's how we got Michael Fletcher." I just thought, how cool of a book would that be? I'm like, you guys are talking about these book ideas on here. I'm like, that's the best one that has come out of here so far, by far. So I'm anxious to see that upcoming book. I think it might also be historical fiction or historical fantasy.
Well, August 27th, 1997, a piece of grilled cheese and some whiskey got together, and Michael Fletcher was born.
That's the perfect start of it. I'll have to talk to Fletcher about that. We'll get going on that. And then maybe we could have him fight the Cameron twins. Oh man.
Oh, they'd lose. Man, he's hardcore.
Oh yeah.
I learned from him that you can actually wear plate armor, go into water, swim, run out of the water, and still fight. Okay, well, I got to change this scene. Let me change that. So,
I had a friend that said that he wants to start doing, because he was seeing, Christians writing fighting, and he goes, I want to test out some different things that we've seen from these different fantasy books or sci-fi books. And I said, well, sci-fi is probably kind of hard, but he was talking about that. He's like, well, maybe fantasy, and we could try some of these things in plate armor or something, and actually see if it works. And I've seen a couple of YouTube channels and stuff do stuff like that. So I said that might be kind of interesting, like just to know different things, because I find Cameron's stuff for his writing fighting to be really interesting and helpful in terms of writing. So I told him, I said maybe that'd be a good experiment for him to do on there, like.
Well, it turns out it's really, really hard to decapitate somebody.
Yeah. I remember that too from what was that show that they did that with Adam Savage? Why am I blanking on that right now? You know what I'm talking about, though. They do all the experiments. I love that.
Oh, Mythbusters.
Mythbusters, yeah. We talked about doing a Mythbusters fantasy edition. And I just thought that'd be really fun. So would you say that you prefer writing historical fiction more or fantasy? I know some people like me, like fantasy is easier. I want to get into urban fantasy and historical fiction. I'm a history teacher. They interest me, but for some reason and science fiction, like I just find that writing fantasy for me, I think because I've read so much of it, it's just easier. Like I get an idea, I go with it. The characters are better. and you think character development, you would be better or the same at, both genres, but I'm just not. So for me, writing fantasy, I enjoy more because it's easier. But I was just curious what you prefer writing most and why.
I would really hesitate to call any of it easy.
That's fair too.
Yeah,
That's fair
it's
too.
really not. I always say that historical fiction is fantasy's cousin with a degree.
Oh, I like that.
It's exactly.
We're gonna quote you there. We're gonna quote you there.
There you go. Yeah. On the surface, they are exactly the same, especially if you include superstition in your historical fiction. Yeah. But for whatever reason, the literary community at large puts more emphasis on historical fiction than they do on fantasy.
Yeah.
So I like the cachet of historical fiction, but I like the fandom of fantasy.
Oh, I like that.
You don't have the level of fan interaction, or you didn't used to. With the internet, you might have more, but when I first started, you did not have fan interaction with historical fiction. They would buy it, and you would never hear from them again.
Yeah.
Now, fantasy fans love to talk.
They
love to talk about what they just read. And that's become a gauge, I guess, for how well a book does, is how many people are talking about it. Because you pretty much guaranteed if nobody is talking about a book, nobody's buying it.
Yeah.
And so I like the almost instant interaction with fantasy. So that's why I just bridge it and go with historical fantasy.
Oh, yeah,
so yeah. I can have my peanut butter, I can have my chocolate, I can smush it together. So.
Yeah, and I do really like how you put that too with historical fiction as a genre, because I was just discussing that with some students in my class the other day, and they were asking like who I have on this weekend, stuff like that, and I have some that are really interested in historical fiction. I have some that are interested in fantasy, and we just started talking in my student advisement. It's like an academic lab, and I'm like, listen, all historical fiction is like you have some true facts that somebody put together, and I said I like, for instance, it's like the Oathbreakers books or whatever. Like I liked how you had the Attila the Hun treasure. You have some ghosts in there. You have some supernatural elements. They all felt very real. It wasn't overpoured with fantasy, but like you were saying, there's the mythological or the superstitious aspect, and that's why I actually like the TV show. Not that I don't like Bernard Cornwell's books, I really do, but I liked on the TV show how they walk the fine line. And for instance, season 3 with Uhtred, where he's cursed, spoilers for anybody, and how he tries to break the curse. I like Brita, like they walk a fine line between the supernatural, superstition, and historical fiction. To me, it's almost like it's fantasy, and I feel like it's so very similar, because really my kids are like, well, there's no similarities. I'm like, they're so different. I'm like, no, I'm like, none of us were there. I'm like, you're literally just making it up, and if you do it well enough, like.
Yeah, with medieval and ancient historical fiction, there is no difference between a book, say like Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. There's no difference between Pillars of the Earth and Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
The setting is virtually identical to the modern person.
Yeah.
The modern person does not know enough about the Middle Ages conversationally to be able to divorce it from fantasy.
Yeah.
So much, I guess, bad history has gone around. People teach weird stuff in school. They pick up weird stuff. So, the ancient world, the medieval world, there's no longer any difference between that and fantasy in most people's minds. So, but because it's historical, and most of them, no offense, probably had a horrible history teacher.
Oh no, totally. They tell me that all the time. Yeah,
I had the absolute worst history teachers. All we did was learn dates.
Oh God, I hate that.
And that was it. It's like this time test, this time test. I'm surprised I was a straight C student in school, never went to college, and I have no idea why I decided one day I'm going to sit down I'm going to write history. Haha, I know nothing about it.
Yeah,
But it was easier to make a fantasy world based on history.
yeah,
'Cause I didn't really have to do the work. It was already done for me.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I just had to learn how to phrase it for somebody reading it. So, and that was how I got started, was just learning to phrase the past for a modern reader. So, and I think I did it pretty well. So,
Yeah. I mean, my friend, like, as soon as he picked up, oh, I can't remember which of yours he read first. If it was A Gathering of Ravens or it was Men of Bronze, right?
yeah, Men of Bronze is
No,
very
I think it was Men of Bronze. I think it was Men of Bronze. He's read both, but I believe he said Men of Bronze was his favorite book that he's picked up in the last 5 years.
Oh wow.
Very, very picky when it comes to historical fiction. Like, for instance, I'm on number 2, The Pale Horseman for Bernard Cornwell, and John Gwynn's sons, Edward and William, have their podcast and YouTube channel, the Brothers Gwynn, and they, like, Edward said that The Pale Horseman was like the best one he's read so far, and my friend really didn't like that one for some reason,
Yeah.
and I just thought that that's kind of interesting, you know. So he was actually one of the first ones to suggest Men of Bronze to me. He said that that's definitely him and my type of historical fiction. So I'm very anxious to get Gathering of Ravens read and then to check that one out, because coming from him, to me, that's a really big deal. So
See, Men of Bronze suffered from, the first book syndrome. I
mm,
can't read it now without just, I'm like wincing every time I read it because it has first book problems.
yeah. But you look at a guy like, like Bob, like R.A. Salvatore, right? And you look at his the Crimson Shadow series, and when I had read, book 30 of the Dritz series and probably his book 50th book, and then I went and started reading the Crimson Shadow, I could definitely tell, especially with book 1, that was early in his career, but at the same time, that holds a special place in people's hearts, in terms of fantasy. And, I just feel like we were just talking about that, some friends and I, the other day in the writing community, and we were talking about, how if the ideas are there and people love your characters, at the end of the day, nobody
Yeah.
really cares, and that's also what Anthony Ryan was discussing too, in Wizards, Warriors, and Words with the Blood Song, when he had his first copy of it, or his first edition was out, and then he said since then he's obviously fixed it and things, but
Yeah.
he was surprised at how many people, really enjoyed it, right from the start. So I think that if it's got it, and really it doesn't really matter what's around it. So
And that's the hardest lesson to learn that you'll learn when you get your book done. Your first book, nobody's going to care how well it's written.
yeah,
No reader. Of course,
no, yeah,
publishers will.
yeah,
But
yeah,
all that prose that you spent so many months
yeah,
and years working on, they don't care. They want some fight scenes. They want some magic. They want some badass stuff. They want something they can ooh and ah over.
yeah,
They don't
yeah,
care if you split an infinitive or if you dangle a participle.
yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Well, you look at a guy like I love Glenn Cook, for instance,
Oh
God
yeah.
is a Black Company, and the first time I tried reading the book 1, I just wasn't there yet, and then my style had changed when I was an adult, so I went back and I ate it up. It's a different
Mhm.
style than I like, but I loved Croker. I
Yeah.
loved the other characters. It just didn't matter, and
He's
now I'm on like book
really
5,
he's a
like
he's a minimalist. He's an
yeah,
extreme
for
minimalist for
sure.
fantasy.
And going from Bob, literally, I think I went going from Bob and then Robert Jordan that week. And then I went to Chronicles of the Black Company because I remember it specifically. And then because my buddy, I was like, I don't know if I can do this. And he said that. He was like, dude, he's like, just give it a chance. He's like, it's totally different style of writing. He goes, but as a writer, he's like, you need to see this and
Yeah.
experience it in order to understand it. And
Yep.
then once I started getting like, I was at like page maybe 25 or something, and something happened, and I texted him back. I was like, you were totally right. This is my kind of thing. I think it was like that first battle, like the aftermath or whatever,
Hmm.
where she's flying around. And I was just like, oh, that's really cool, And then all of a sudden, all this mythology and mythos from the world came out, and I was like, I was instantly hooked. So
Oh yeah.
I think I read the next 3 or 4 after that within, the next couple of weeks. But yeah, it's definitely a different style than I was used to. But now I'm really glad because I think I had made my writing simpler because of it, and I
Yeah.
feel like it has not it's helped me more than it made me suffer. And I really am glad to have gone through the process of those characters because, um, and I'm really anxious to read yours too because, again, like I said, I think this should be its own genre really because I'm looking to do basically like Roman soldiers, Chronicles of Black Company feel or bridge burners from Steven Erickson, and they're in Britannia and they get attacked by zombies, and I just want to do that.
That's historical fantasy. That's
Exactly,
its
and I
own genre. So,
I want to do
now,
that.
you've never mentioned, I've never seen you mention, have you ever read Robert E. Howard?
I have actually.
Okay.
It's because I just got on Twitter a couple years ago. But oh my gosh, no, I probably own. I just bought the four of all four. I finally found the last one for Robert E. Jordan's. Robert E. Howard books. When he was writing them.
Yeah.
I have probably 20 of the first ones, whatever Robert E. Howard wrote himself, I have. I think I'm only missing maybe 5 or 6. And
Yeah.
then the next writer, I forget his name. I feel so bad about this, but I probably have 10 that he wrote. So I probably have close to about 50 Conan books sitting on the old bookshelves. I probably read about half of them so far, and I have the first, or sorry, the first comic run from the early 2000s that Dark Horse was doing. I have like the first 5 graphic novels and every issue of those 5 novels as well. And actually, I just got the new Savage Sword Conan that Marvel's doing, and then there's another one too. So I love Conan. I love Conan.
Now, with what you're interested in for writing, have you ever read Brand Mcmorn?
No, actually, I have not.
You need to go. You can actually get it at the, I think the Australian Gutenberg.org for
Okay.
free. Go
Okay.
read that before you write another word.
Yeah. 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 Okay.
Because, I talk about this before, but every writer writing the same style of stuff today, everybody from Robert Jordan, Steven Erickson, even Bernard Cornwell, they owe that debt to Robert E. Howard.
Yeah. Yeah.
1930s, he started writing in that gritty, uh, hack 'em up style.
Yeah. Yeah.
So every book since then owes that debt to him. But for you, you need to go read Brand Mcmorn,
Okay.
especially one called Worms in the Earth.
Oh, I've definitely heard of that one.
Yeah, that will be right up your alley.
Oh, cool.
It doesn't have zombies, but it does have all the rest of it.
Yeah. 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 I just like that type of feel, and yeah, I was looking for something a little different recently, and they always say like, write what you want to read, and
Yeah.
that's where I got this idea because I actually want to take the Lost Legion, and I'm going to explain how they got lost, and I'm basically taking them, and I've been doing research on the Lost Legion, from what we know, and now of course like there comes out with a new study saying that, in this archaeological study saying that they think that it was just a paperwork error and they actually weren't lost. But I'm like, that's no fun. I'm like, with zombies there instead. So
That's like you've heard of the Lost Army of Cambyses, haven't you?
Yep. And that's where another one too kind of came in for me because I was debating where to start, but I thought, well, I could start here, and then I thought about doing that. Thought about Napoleon's Lost Army, and I thought maybe this could be a thing, depending on where I want to go with it. If I want to do a trilogy for each or whatever, but I just thought I love the Iron Bars from Steven Erickson's Malazan Book of the Fallen, and I think it's book 3 or 4, and book 3 Midnight Tides, and I just loved the company that they kept, and basically the different characters, and they had the gruff captain who can do anything and get him out of any situation. Then they have the healer, then they have the sorcerer, and I just thought I loved the dynamic, and I thought, what about doing a fantasy setting for this? And then I thought, you know what about doing historical fiction and then adding some fantasy to it? I thought maybe that could be a thing, and then maybe they travel Europe, and after they left the Legion, and maybe there were some reasons why, and they don't want to go back to the Roman Empire or whatever, and maybe they travel different places and then encounter different supernatural beings and things like that. They could kind of be like the A team of historical fiction and fantasy, like, and kind of do Brothers Grimm from the movie with Matt Damon and and then kind of go from there. But
Hey, that'll work.
yeah, I'm gonna have to check that out. That sounds really
Yeah.
cool.
It's especially if you pay attention to some of the detail that he uses
Oh
to
yeah.
describe like the landscapes and all. I have never been out of the continental United States, so I rely on travel logs,
Oh yeah, yeah.
things like that to find out about places. I have a friend that's been everywhere, so
Oh cool.
she always tells me little details about places.
Yeah, yeah. Well, my buddy and I talked about doing that and like starting our own corporation for my writing, for going independent, and then we could go to Europe for a couple weeks at some point, a couple years from now, and then we could also go to Japan. We can just write it off as a business expense. And he's like, it would be because you're getting, information on these
Yeah.
different places. And I thought, oh, because I really would love to go to like the moors of, Scotland and check out the cliffs of Ireland and, go to a few places. But yeah, that's
Well,
a
that's
good
what's
idea.
great about social media, though. You can just go on there and say, "Hey, does anybody live near the moors?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Could you go walking out there in the morning and tell me what you hear?"
Well, Gareth Powell is one of those guys. Like he went to a castle the other day over by him in the UK, and I thought, oh, that is really cool. And it was a little bit different than what I would normally think. And I, for some reason, was thinking of this one YA that I was thinking about doing, and I kind of started a short story, and then it turned into something different, and now I think it's might turn into actual YA trilogy. But there was this young girl, and I basically want her to be a descendant of Arthur, and then not know it till she goes over there and hits this one spot, and then I thought, oh, that to me was how I was picturing these ruins in my head. So I might actually be like, hey Gareth, can I use your like vacation photos, for an idea for this book?
Then they're like, "Oh, it's just another castle." I'm like, "Man, around me, all I have are trailer parks."
I know, right? I got a bunch of like small, foothill mountains over near me in New York.
Yeah, I think we got hills compared to most of them.
Yeah. I don't blame you. Yeah.
I got
But,
3 meth heads and like 6
yeah,
trailers.
yeah.
I'd rather
like-
have a castle.
One of my friends lives in Mexico City, right? And he's like, yeah, I think he drives it, right there. I think I forget what the university is right there in Mexico City, but like you literally go out and there are, the Aztec ruins and stuff, and the Isle of the Sun, and I'm just like, it must
And they're
be
just
nice.
like, "Oh, it's just
Yeah, just some rocks.
And they're over here. They come to America. They're like, "Oh my God, 7-Eleven."
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah. Oh
"Y'all are
man,
weird."
when I took him to Barnes and Noble for the first time, it was so funny because he was like amazed, because this was like decades ago, where I mean there weren't as many Barnes and Nobles, and he was just like, man, he's like, I have to, online wasn't a huge thing at that time. This is probably almost 20 years ago. So we took him to Barnes and Noble, and he literally walked out of there with like 20 books. And it's like I would have to go to like this many cities around us to find these authors and stuff. And then that's how I felt when I went up to I went by chapters in Canada near Toronto, and I can't wait for the border to open up again so I can stop for the Toronto Comic Con and go, because then I found all these UK friends of mine. That's where all their books are, in paperback. So I was like, well, why am I ordering on Amazon when I can go 4 hours and just get the paperbacks? And I was like, it'll cost me less in gas than it will to ship all the paperbacks through Amazon here. So
That's what sucks about being in Alabama. I go 4 hours either way. I'm in like Georgia or Mississippi.
That's fair. That was my friend was like talking about Ohio. He's like lives in Ohio now. He's like, I'll just go. He's like, I'm in Illinois because I don't really want to go in Illinois. He's like, we're here, this and that. And he's lived all over like the Midwest, and I laugh. I'm like, you can come over this way. I was like, we got a lot of different places to go. I go 4 hours. I'm in Philly, 4.5. I'm over in New York City. Go 4 up where this or that, 4 down. Like anything 4 hours is within pretty good distance. So ends up making a lot more fun. Oh, let's see here. Okay, so this I might have to like break this up into two episodes, but I'm okay if you're okay to come back since
Okay,
we already have the questions. I
sure.
just don't want to feel like we're getting a lot of good stuff, so I don't want to cut us off. That's like me and Mark had too. So I love genius when it happens. I'm really interested in this answer though, for
Okay.
that third question. So where do you start when it comes to your style of fantasy? Do you start with the mythological or historical side, or do you start with the fantasy side?
I start with the character.
Character. Okay, cool.
Uh, like with we'll use Grimner from
Oh,
Gathering
perfect.
Raven.
I was hoping you would.
Yeah. So the whole idea behind him, he is an orc.
Oh,
So
cool.
he is an orc. That the idea was, what if Tolkien had found orcs in Norse myth?
Oh, that's cool.
So
That's really cool.
they become the prototype for every monster from Grendel to the Fomorians in Ireland, the Calacan Zataroi in Greece. They're all the same creatures. And so reverse engineering from Tolkien's the Silmarillion, you take everything that Christopher Tolkien revealed about orcs in the Silmarillion and find out where they fit in Norse myth. And so I did that. They fit perfectly. And then I killed everybody else but one. So what is this one person like?
Mm.
And I admit it was kind of a dark time in my life. So I set out to make the nastiest, most unlikable character I could imagine. And they actually let me do it. So, but he has to have some minor positive qualities or people won't read about it. So he's if he ever gives his word, he will never break it, even if it kills him. So he never gives his word.
Yeah.
But yeah, I start with, what is he like? What's his temperament? What's his story? What does he want? And what is he willing to do to get it? And the last question, what's he willing to do, was easiest because he's willing to do whatever he needs to.
Mm.
He does not have a human sense of shame or human sense of oh crap, I forgot the word. But
Oh, conscience.
yeah, he has no human conscience. Yeah, that's the word. And it makes it kind of hard to write, but kind of fun to write.
Yeah.
But he's also extremely religious.
Mm.
But it's Norse religion.
Yeah.
And he knows it exists because he's seen it. So throughout the story, he's going back and forth with, fighting with people from Christianity because he dares them to call their God. And look, I'm going to smack you around until he gets here. So let's, you better start calling, because I'm going to, beat you down until he shows up. And he always wins this argument because nothing ever happens. But I start with his personality. I always like to fix in my mind what he looks like. So I go into great detail, sometimes too much detail, with physical description. And then I build the world around him. So he was the first thing that showed up, and I mean, he showed up years ago in a dream I had.
Oh, cool.
And I just had to find the right setting for him. And so I tried straight fantasy. I tried different historical versions, and he fit best in Norse myth. And so I did all of the work around that. And the story is probably the last thing that comes up. And it's, for him, it was just simple revenge. What will you do to get revenge for somebody that's wronged you? So, and that is, 330 something pages later, that is the main thrust of the story, is What are you willing to do to get revenge? And him being not human, he's willing to do all kinds of things.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but yeah, so it starts with the character, then I go with you know the world, and then the story. So
See how I feel like how you described him, like the blurb on the back of the book is excellent. I feel like um, that excites me more because I'm a character driven guy. Um, that's why I like Uhtred so much. For instance, I
yeah,
like that season 3. No spoilers, but season 3, episode 10. There's a speech that he gives, and I'm just like, it blew me away, and I was like, this has to be some of the best writing, and it's
yeah,
so climactic, and I have analyzed that a lot as I'm going back through now and watching all the seasons again. I'm like, what do I really like about Uhtred? Because I'm like, he's not perfect, and but like again, like you said, like your character keeps his word. I really like that, even if he doesn't give it so often.
yeah,
So I don't know. There's something about a unique character, and I feel like you already have described so many different reasons that he's unique. So to me, that just really, I was having this discussion with Fletcher the other day, and I guess it was a couple weeks ago now, and like Ashton and Hayes and a few other writers were on there and just talking about, because they were mentioning character or plot. Holy moly! Actually, Scott, I'm losing. I think it was actually a couple months ago. It just feels like it was yesterday. Uh, but it was like whatever their episode was, and it was excellent though. It was all about like, what do you think is more important, is character or plot? And I think you stated it really, really well. That I feel like most people it's going to be character,
yeah,
and for me, I definitely feel it's character, and I feel like you just described him in a way that excites me even more, since I've researched what your book is about. Sorry, Gathering Ravens is about. So to me, that
well,
just sounds like a
yeah.
perfect example of just making something unique. I mean, I
See,
know, yeah,
a plot is nothing more than the tortilla around the meat.
yeah, yeah,
Uh, it can, if you don't have a character with a connection, it doesn't matter what your plot is.
yeah,
Will not matter one bit, because the reader will be cold to it, because there is not a character in the story to connect to. I think some of Grimdark has that problem. Is there? It's like they're racing to see who can write the most disgusting character in the world,
yeah, yeah,
and you have to have some redeeming value.
yeah.
Because nobody wants to identify with, a complete, murderous asshole.
No, yeah,
Uh, some of the mainstream movies and books can get away with it. Like, you know, we find Michael Corleone is an interesting character. You don't want to sit down and have dinner with him,
yeah, yeah,
but he does have some redeeming qualities. And that's actually where I lifted the part about giving his word. If Michael Corleone gave his word, he wouldn't go back on it.
yeah,
And so I'm like, well, that's interesting. I jot that down. So to me, the interesting part was he's not human, he's an orc. And I can never use the word orc until at least the 16th century, because it did not exist prior to that. So in the entire book, he is never called an orc except in the afterword.
mm,
So I have to use every other name in the book for him. And I think that hurt it a little bit with fantasy fans because they didn't make the connection
mm,
immediately. But, I have to create a character that is hateful, profane, murderous, but you still like him.
yeah, yeah.
And one other reviewer compared him to the Hound from Game of Thrones.
Oh, that's a good one.
And, he's that I've only seen clips. I've never actually watched the series. I've only read the first book.
Hmm.
So I'm assuming that's a good thing if somebody's
Oh
comparing
no,
him.
for sure. I was kind of waiting for him to finish before starting the series, but I guess I'll just have to start the series sooner rather than later. But yeah,
Yeah.
that I it's particularly my best friend loves those books, and we really enjoyed everything but the last season. But yeah, in terms of I felt like the TV show, from what my friend said, does a really good job, but he felt that the books did a far better job with the Hound. But I would definitely say that that's a good thing because I could definitely see what they're saying there. And if your character is anything like the Hound and gets that redemption arc or has some sort of redeemable quality, even though he's kind of an a-hole, then I think that that is a brilliantly written character because I don't think there's a lot of the Hounds out there. I think people, like you said, like make them too disagreeable or not
Yeah,
likable, and then people just kind of falter off there
yeah.
and don't really care after that. So
So, plus he would kick the Hound's ass.
that's awesome. I would pay for that book today, honestly. Like that'd be a cool one.
See, and that's okay. If you've read the Silmarillion, originally, well, not really originally, Christopher Tolkien went with the orcs coming from elves. So he also used, I'm assuming, that since elves are immortal, orcs are immortal.
That was
So
my understanding of it.
yeah, that's always been
Yeah.
mine. So Grimnir is immortal. He's functionally immortal. He can be killed through violence, but he's immune to disease and poison.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, I mean, you can bash his head in, but he's been around for 1,400 years at this point.
Yeah, good luck bashing his head.
Yeah, he's pretty good at bashing people's heads in.
Yeah.
But he's the source of several myths, like in Eastern Europe.
Oh, that's cool.
He fled that way after bad things happened to his people. So he went to Eastern Europe. So he's the source of, several monster myths.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
plus Grendel. He was the original Grendel.
Oh, that's neat. Anytime you can connect anything to Beowulf, I am there.
Oh man.
That was my first, I think, well, I don't know. I was trying to think of it the other day. I was talking to actually me and Mark were talking on Friday, and I was trying to kind of determine when my first, I know what my first fantasy book was in terms of Forgotten Realms and the genre, but there are other books that I read before that I would think were considered fantasy. But
Yeah.
I think Beowulf really though was like a key one. I think I was a higher reading level, so I think I was 10 or 11 when I first read a dumbed down and more kid version of Beowulf, but I was just like astounded. And then the 13th Warrior came out, and my teacher was like, yeah, this is very similar, to this tale. They just, he changed it from Eaters of the Dead from the novel. And I thought, oh, with Michael Crichton, I thought, oh, this is really cool. So that one always stuck with me the most. So I really like anytime somebody can connect it to Beowulf. So
I think when I was 10 years old, it was probably a tie between The Hobbit and
my
Lord of
favorite.
or I'm sorry, one of the Conan novels, not the novels, the short stories.
Oh, okay.
So I was 10 years old when I stole one off my brother's bookshelf because I liked the painting on the front. So I'm like,
Oh yeah. Oh, classic.
running off with the Ace edition.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
reading it. I'm 10 years old and I probably shouldn't be reading it. But like you, I was a advanced reader. It's like I was advanced in reading, but really, really bad at math. So.
Oh, I know that feeling. Once I got to 6th grade, it was like I think that's where I started reading more because I was like, oh, I'm really good at this, and it was I got a special ed certification recently, and I got a couple of masters in it in a convoluted way. But my friend said that the other day, my co-teacher, he's like, you seem to have a really good grasp for these things. I'm like, well, I said, when I was in 1st grade, they thought I was, had a learning disability for reading. And then it turned out I just had too much energy. And now it turns out I have an overactive thyroid. When I was a kid, it probably spiked at that time. So I know what it felt like, to be in that situation. And then I worked hard to get out of it. And then it turned out that I ate up all the books and the reading and stuff. But then math became harder. And, I literally thought about it the other day. I hid in reading and the other subjects like a shell, like a protective shell. And I think that's why to this day I love books so much, because I feel like they saved me from thinking I was stupid or unintelligent. And without books, I definitely wouldn't be who I am today. So I definitely understand that feeling. To this day, when something comes up, like I can do math, but like, I think about things differently. And it turns out that writing is it's better that I think differently because I feel like it helps out my writing.
Yeah.
And I'm not much of a linear person. I, can bounce around and do different things with plot or outline or write today this book and then go right back into that headspace.
No, I'm not like that, unfortunately. I
Well,
start
like,
at page 1 and write all the way to the end.
well, like Kevin Hearn's like Iron Druid Chronicles, like Atticus had like the druids can do different headspaces. So when I read his books and I was like, oh, okay. I was like, somebody's got the superpower that I feel like I have. Like,
Yeah.
it's kind of funny. But I'm gonna have to wrap this one up if you don't mind, Scott. And if you don't mind, I can email you, and because I really want to get into these other questions. I feel like I've been wanting to hear your answers for quite some time, and like I said, we're quite ahead for the podcast schedule, so we can actually film part 2, and then we can put them back to back for those weeks. We're actually finishing up our calendar this week. That way we can do it there. So we're going to end here for you guys today. Scott had a lot of great things to say, so I'm really anxious to have him come back. And we didn't, I think, even get to the big questions yet. I think that last one was the bigger question. So we're got a few bigger ones. I might add 1 or 2 just to kind of even it out. And you kind of gave me some new things to think about. So it'll be a really good next episode. So we're going to sign off here. And guys, make sure that you when you're seeing this episode, check out the YouTube. By the time you see this, actually, I just thought of this, the Spotify channel will be fixed up and running, so you guys can listen to the audio when you're like me on the way to work. And then, like I said, we'll have Scott back by the time this comes out already and aired for episode 2. Scott Oden, thank you so much for coming, Scott. Like I said, I really look forward to getting into a gathering of ravens, and I look forward to talking to you on Twitter in between now and the next time that we can meet. There it is right there, guys, on the YouTube channel. Go out and buy it today. Yes. I know you're going to be like me and go check out that blurb that I'll attach to the YouTube description here. And I guarantee you, as soon as you guys see that blurb, you're going to want to buy this book. And obviously, Scott talked a lot about his main character, Grimnir, and he just sounds awesome to me. So I'm even more excited to start now. So
See, that now it should move up on your list because he likes to kill other things on the to be read list. It's like the Klingon way of advancement.
Well, I'm hoping that I can just get my act together and just actually focus now that the school year is underway and like sit. It's just really bad. I just haven't had time, and by the time I get home, I fall asleep because we're all these pandemic rules and regulations and things that it feels like I got like nothing left in my brain by the time I got home. So.
It sucks to be old, man.
my body's young, but I feel like my mind has gotten older.
Yeah, man, I feel that one in my bones.
All right, Scott. Well, thank you so much for coming. I will be sending you an email shortly today. I'm going to fix the podcast schedule, and we can find a good second slot for both of us to come back and finish up these questions and get some more genius on the tapes. So
pretty much any day before 2.
Perfect. That sounds great. Well, I'll email you shortly, and I look forward to talking to you soon. You have a good rest of the day, okay?
You too. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Bye, Scott.
See you later.
Bye.